Welcome back. The lawyer for alleged July unrest instigator and Patriotic Alliance leader Bruce Nimmerhoudt has made an application to have him discharged. Nimmerhoudt was back at the Roodepoort Magistrates Court today. He is accused of creating and distributing a voice note inciting looting and violence. eNCA's Silindelo Masikane has been tracking proceedings and joins us now for an update. So it was a brief proceedings today in court. Slee, what happened?
Very brief. In fact, what we saw was the state closing its case in this particular matter to us. We know, of course, that Bruce Nimmerhoudt is charged with terrorism as well as inciting public violence. And this all stems from a voice note that went viral last year around the 15th or so of July. And this was in the height, of course, of those July unrest riots. And it seems as though the information the police had was that that voice belongs to Bruce Nimmerhoudt. Now, this trial began back in July, Tulas, and from what I understand, there have been about 4 witnesses who have actually taken the stand, but none of them actually conclusively telling the court that they can confirm that, in fact, that voice note did belong to Bruce Nimmerhoudt. Now, the regional PA leader has instructed his lawyer to then launch a discharge application, saying that, in fact, the state has really not proven its case with beyond a reasonable doubt that he was the one who created and distributed that voice note. Let's take a listen.
The accused had given a voice sample, and it's clear that from the voice sample that the accused gave to the investigating officers, compared to the clip that the state has, Your Worship, it's different. Why the state will not accept that it's different, Your Worship? Because they know from the onset it was clear how they're going to present the evidence that the accused created a voice note and he had distributed it for people to commit and incite violence, Your Worship. They failed to do that.
So, Slee, as you're telling this story, it dawns on me that actually this matter has proceeded quite significantly if we're at a point where the state has closed its case and the defense is asking for a discharge in terms of Section 174 of the Criminal Procedure Act. So we just heard from Nimmerhout's lawyer there. What was the response from the state to that application?
Of course, the state is opposing the application, saying, yeah, there might be some contradictions in terms of what the witnesses were brought, which came to court in terms of their testimony. There may be some contradictions there, but the state believes that it's brought sufficient evidence to the court that the 174 application should not be granted and rather allow Nimmerhoudt to then defend himself. But then his lawyer saying that what the state is really trying to do right now is make Nimmerhoudt essentially incriminate himself when there's really nothing he should be answering to. Let's take a listen to the state prosecutor.
My argument is that the state has, through what I've just said now, has established a case before this court, Your Worship, a case which merits the response from the accused person. Yes, I'm well aware of the contradictions which might have emanated during the trial from the evidence of the various state witnesses, but my submission is that those contradictions per se, Your Worship, do not render the evidence of the state as hopeless as my learned colleague has argued. And my submission is that there is evidence before this court, there is evidence which warrant a response from the accused person.
So obviously a lot is riding on this, Silindelo, because, you know, the state will want to be able to have him, Nimmerhoudt, present his side of the story. They are adamant they've presented a solid case against him. He's adamant that there's no prima facie case on which any reasonable court could convict. What happens now?
What happens now is that we wait until tomorrow, Tulas, where we understand the magistrate will be ready to deliver her verdict on the 174 application at around 9 a.m. And of course, we do expect that Nimmerhoudt will be back in the dock. He has been out on bail, Tulas, of 3,000 Rand since his bail application last year. But I think what's going to be very significant in terms of this verdict is that if this particular 174 application is granted, then it's going to question exactly what evidence the state will have against anyone else they've accused of instigating the July unrest riots, and whether they'll be able to actually successfully prosecute those they've accused. From what I understand, this is just one of the few cases that has made it, like you said, to the stage where the state has closed its case. So I think we're all watching exactly what's going to happen with Nimmerhoudt, because he's not just an ordinary member of society, he's a leader of the Patriotic Alliance, but also an MMC in the West Rand. So we wait until tomorrow to find out whether those charges against him will be discharged by the court.
All right, Silindelo, thank you for that update. That's eNCA's Silindelo Masikane there. It's an absolutely important development. I suspect, I could be wrong here, but this case, of all the cases of the alleged instigators of the July unrest, I suspect this has moved furthest along in that the state has closed its case. Bruce Nimmerhoudt asking for discharge at the close of the state's case, and tomorrow 9 a.m., truly important development. We'll be watching it closely to see what the decision of the Roodepoort Magistrates Court will be on that application.